We are once again here at the Grant King Race Shop. Bill and Stephanie Throckmorton are kind enough to allow us to come here and do this program. And we've been doing them several times a week, which we enjoy doing. But this program is being brought to you by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, SVRA, McGilvery's and Speedway, and VP Insurance. Founded in 1993 to spearhead Honda's entry into IndyCar racing, Honda Performance Development has overseen successful racing efforts at all levels of the sport, from karting and quarter midgets to IndyCar and prototype sports cars. HPD offers race engines and competition products for professional, amateur, and entry-level racers. For more information about HPD and the company's racing products line, please visit hpd.honda.com. And I need to remind myself each time that I got to thank the Speedway Cable TV guys for editing this and putting in the open and close, which they created. Great job, and appreciate their time. Do you need a dentist? Everybody loves to go see a dentist. Well, I'm going to tell you a good one. The Indy Dental Group. Indy veteran Dr. Jack Miller and his wife, Dr. Liz Lewis, have one of the highest rated practices in the state. Give them a call, get an appointment. I guarantee you'll love them. 317-846-6125. And if you're like me and have multiple problems with your computer, we have a new computer guy, A-plus affordable computer doctor. He is a doctor in as much as in the old days when the doctor used to make house calls, this doctor does. His name is Steve Freed. If you got a problem, call him, talk to him, tell him about it, and work with him. He'll work with you, 317-328-0766. And in case you have an interest in finding out why the guys and gals love driving Indy cars, why not take a ride in a two-seater and find out for yourself? You can go to IndyRacingExperience.com and pick a date when they get moving again. And in the promo box, put DK1, you get a 50% discount. Or you could call our office, talk to Shonda. Number 317-243-7171. And if it's time for you to update your insurance on your home, your car, or your commercial property, do what I've done and many of us have done, go to VP Insurance. In fact, I just got new insurance on our house, and it was $400 less, more coverage. So Mike can help you. Talk to Mike Pardee, number 317-248-0070. And should you be an Indy vintage car fan, why not, and you'd like to buy a car, there's several behind me you can see that are available, or if you bought one, you need it restored, or you need an engine rebuilt, come to the Grant King shops. They can handle it all. The number is 317-820-3595. Tell them what you're looking for. They'll help you get it or help you fix it. And Speed Tour Magazine, top class. You want to know what's going on in the world of vintage racing and Trans Am? You need to subscribe to Speed Tour. Go to svra.com and subscribe. And while you're there, look at the schedule. The schedule that they're running currently, or they're planning on currently, is there. So check it out. My guest today is the what I call the head man of Honda. Anything that goes on with Honda Motorsports, he's involved in. And if you have a question and you need some help to get something through them, this is the man to talk to. He lives on the left coast, and he's been with Honda for quite some time. And I'm very happy that he is also Honda is also a sponsor of the Autosport Radio Show. And coming all the way from California, please welcome T.E. McHale. T.E., thanks for taking the time.
Afternoon, Don. It's good to see you. That's a pretty impressive list of sponsors you've got there, but I noticed that you led with the right brand. So thank you for that.
Of course. As I've said to you and many people, I've been a Honda guy for a long time, having met Mr. Honda back in the 60s when he was just getting into motorsports and had to figure out a way to pay for it. So he started building cars, and it seems to have worked out fairly well.
Yeah, obviously, like everybody, we're having a few tough days these days, but we're going to come out on the other side of this. And yes, certainly Mr. Honda built himself quite a business.
How does Honda's involvement in motorsports, and you're in not only IndyCar, you're in, as I just said, in every level, from entry level on up to the prototype sports cars and IndyCar. How does that translate to retail sales, which I assume is what's got to sponsor and pay for the motorsports division?
I think maybe you can answer that question better than I. What do you got at me? 20 odd cars now that you've sold for us?
I just got 2 more, so I'm at 30.
30.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very, very much for your support of our products. I mean, obviously, what we hope is that through demonstrating results on the racetrack, that folks will be interested in maybe exploring the purchase of a Honda vehicle or an Acura vehicle, for that matter, as their everyday drivers.
How did you get into this? When you were a young man and you went to college, did you have your eye on motorsports, or did you just have your eye on communications or journalism or whatever you graduated with?
You know, I have to say, and I say it with some embarrassment, I was not a motorsports guy at all growing up, not at all. I came more from a stick and ball based family. My uncle was actually a pretty highly placed executive in Major League Baseball for a period of time. And when I was growing up, I got to go to all-star games and World Series games and those kinds of things as a result of his connections in the major leagues. And it was only really when I went to work in 1978 for a middle market newspaper not too far from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course that I was handed the motorsports beat at the Mansfield News Journal in Central Ohio. And I had that beat for 18 years. And over the course of those 18 years, I got to meet a lot of pretty influential people in motorsports. And I'd love to say that I could see in 1996 the hard times that were ahead for people in the newspaper business. But I definitely had an angel on my shoulder, and I am the walking example of a guy who said the right thing to the right guy at the right time. And in the early part of 1996, I got a job with what was then the CART series, working in their public relations department, and I worked there through 2001. And then I spent a year working for the Trans Am in St. Petersburg, Florida in 2002. And I got the opportunity to come to work for Honda in early 2003, and I've been here ever since.
17 years.
17 years.
What is your day-to-day job? What do you do or for Honda racing and Honda development? What's your job?
I think the easiest way to describe that, Don, is just to say that if it has nothing to do at all with the performance of our product on the racetrack, meaning the building, servicing, and anything that has to do with the actual race engine on the track, we've got an engineering staff that handles that. But most everything else that might touch the racing program I'm involved with in some way. I'm not directly responsible for, but as you know, we have a trackside hospitality program. I oversee that. I oversee driver appearances at dealerships or at racetrack events. I oversee sponsorships for the races that we have, that we sponsor. I'm kind of the in-house interface with the advertising department. If they want a driver or a team to participate in some sort of an advertisement, I connect those people and help those kind of relationships build so that they can build the ad that they need to build. So anything that doesn't have to do with making the cars go fast, but does have to do with the kind of the peripheral stuff that goes on at a racetrack, I'm involved in that in some way for the most part.
Who makes the decision on how many engines you provide for teams or how many teams you will accept, be it one car, two car, and in one case, 6 cars?
Well, we're required by contract to be able to supply, I believe, I haven't seen what the latest contract looks like, but I believe we are required to supply at least 40% of the engines to the entire field. So, take a field of 24 cars and do 40% of that, whatever that would be. And that's what we're required. That doesn't mean we have to fix at that number. We can go over and above it, but at a minimum, we have to supply 24 or 40% of the engines to whatever the given full season field is going to be. Now, you asked how we determine this. It's a lot of back and forth. I mean, there's an optimal number for HPD so that they don't feel, because we supply at least one engineer as a member of the support staff for every car we put on the racetrack. In fact, no team can even start an Indy car unless there's an HPD engineer present. So we take pretty seriously our support operation at the racetrack. And there's an optimal number that we want to supply. Sometimes we have to move with that. Obviously, the month of May is a different proposition. Well, the month of August this year, but it's a different proposition in terms of the one-off cars that get added. But I think going into any given season, 13, give or take, is the number that we're looking for. Fewer if we can support that. Not too many more than that as a rule.
Are you full to the gills now? Do you have the 13?
Well, let's do the math. I was actually trying to think about that before we came on the air. You said 6 Andretti cars. That's right. 3 from Ganassi. That's 9. 2 from Ray Hall. That's 11. 2 from Coyne. That's 13. Am I missing anybody?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so that gets us to 13.
Now, if somebody
in a compelling situation, we might be able to go to 14, but I know that wouldn't be HPD's preference. They're just because they don't want to be spread too thin in supporting all of our partner teams in the paddock.
Well, I would have to think that if you were approached by somebody with a shoe that can make you guys, would perform well for Honda, you might sit down and talk about it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, 13 is by no means a hard and fast number, but I think you'd have to have a pretty compelling sponsorship and talent case to get us to go above that.
Now, the Honda HPD has done well. They've won back-to-back championships, and that's got to be really nice. Now, how do you go for a three-peat? Are the guys working on the engines now? And it amazes me. You can have an engine that start the season, and 3 or 4 races in, they find something, and all of a sudden it's a little quicker. You'd think an engine's been built, so how do you find something new, different, that makes your engine better?
Well, that is a really difficult question now, just because the engine that we've been running in the IndyCar series is now in its maybe 10th year. It goes back a while. So,
right.
So our guys, to their credit, and thank me, as you said, we've been very, very fortunate to win the past 2 IndyCar Manufacturers Championships. But I don't think there's a lot of room to find any edge in what remains. That's why we're all pretty excited about maybe getting to a new engine in another couple of years. I think the current plan is to run the current engine through 21. It's probably gotten as much out of its life cycle as it can, right now. I'm not an engineer, so I can't, speak to where any additional area of development might be, but I can't imagine there are too many after this engine's been in service for as long as it has.
Yeah, but you would think when they came out with it initially, they said, good, it puts out 803 horsepower. That's it. And all of a sudden they find something, it goes to 830. Then it goes to 860, and they find things. And it's just always amazed me. How in the world do you do that? I mean, you've got an engine that runs well. Now, I remember questioning you one day about when Chevrolet came on board, Honda had a little bit of a problem. And when I said, these engines ran for the last 5 years with no problems. Well, when we supplied everybody, it didn't have to be maxed. But now we've got competition. We got to crank it up a little bit, and we've had a problem, but you've obviously solved it.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Don. As you know, we were the single engine supplier in the series from 2006 to 2011. So we worked on those and built those engines with a completely different mindset because we wanted to make sure they lasted. And the acid test of that for us was the month of May at Indianapolis, and every year from 2006 through 2011, the 500 ran without an engine failure, and it had never happened until 2006. So we got 6 straight years out of the 500 without an engine failure after, however long, not from 1911 until 2006. there'd been at least one failure in every single race. So we're pretty proud of that. But you're right. We were building engines for durability and reliability rather than for performance at that point.
Something that people don't really realize, and I lived in Japan for 6 years and know the people. In fact, I was never friends with Mr. Honda, but I saw him when I was over there in compliments of Uncle Sam's Navy. And I went to some races and got to see him. And the Japanese are strange people and a proud people. And there was a driver, or a team actually, that was running Hondas in Formula One, and they weren't happy. And a couple of them were rather vocal about it. And when they wanted to come to Indianapolis with the Honda engine, the Honda executive says, "Thanks, but no thanks." They didn't like being badmouthed, and I don't blame them. I mean, I wouldn't either.
I don't know that I want to go too far into that. I wouldn't disagree with what you just said.
Okay. On your day-to-day now, since everything's kind of shut down, what is going on? What are you guys doing? Are the engineers working on the engine? Are you working on the new one? It's my understanding in 21, I think, or whenever it comes out, 22 when it comes out, it's supposed to be about 150 horsepower more.
I can't sit here today as we speak and say that there are people. I know, I think I told you before we came on the air, I hope I'm not repeating myself, that for me personally, this is day 32 of work from home. Mm-hmm. I think HPD's been on a similar program. I do think that there are, with particularly since the social distancing regulations are a little more stringent in California than they seem to be in the rest of the country right now. I think maybe there are folks going in there, but they're not fully staffed, obviously, and they're being very careful about actually having access to the building. And unless they have access to the building, they can't really build the engines. So it's kind of a quiet period. I know that up until the coronavirus, took its toll on the rest of the country, that there was a significant amount of development going on in terms of the next engine. But in terms of what might actually be happening at HPD today, I really don't know.
Now, you are, as I said, from the left coast, and I saw you several times last year when California was on fire. But you obviously avoided that. It didn't come into your area, so you didn't have any kind of major problem.
It would have to burn through an awful lot of concrete in an awful lot of urban area to get to me. So yeah, it astonishes me how much the smoke carries. You can see when there are fires going on, you have no trouble looking into the sky and seeing pretty significant smoke. But no, I'm in an area of the city where it would really have to do a lot of damage to even find me.
Now, your right-hand man, Dan Layton, what is he up to? I mean, activity. I talked to him and wanted him on the program back 2-3 months ago, whenever it was. And he said, "I'm going to England, I'm going here, I'm going there. I won't be in town for a while, but I'll keep it in mind." What do you got him doing?
Well, I'll tell you what, and you know Dan pretty well. I mean, Dan's a racing geek, and he freely admits that he's a racing geek. So he has really embraced this iRacing business to the point where he's got several different monitors going on in front of him. I mean, his Saturdays are just like he's like in a control center, just keeping track of the iRacing activities that are going on in Europe or here in the States. He obviously religiously follows the IndyCar iRacing Challenge. He's not hurting for things to do, and particularly, and I'm happy for him that he's able to feed his intense desire for racing content by keeping track of all of this.
Is Honda happy with what they're doing? I've been told that a lot of sponsors are very happy to see this because, if you're a Honda team and you're sponsored by so-and-so, it's on the car. It looks absolutely real. Is Honda delighted with it?
I have to say that this is fairly new technology in terms of my exposure to it. I've not really paid attention to iRacing in the past. I'm astonished at how realistic the appearances of it are. I really am. And to your question, I think it's been a good means for the series to stay in front of the public during the time when we're not actually doing what we want to be doing at real racetracks. So yeah, overall, I think as a group, Honda's pretty pleased with what it's seen. We haven't won one of these races yet, or at least one of our drivers haven't. So I guess the last one's coming up this weekend, so maybe we can go out on a high note.
There you go. It's interesting. You're saying that you've never been really full speed ahead with this. Neither have I until the challenge started. I watched off and on a little bit going on, but I was really the second or third race really got my attention because they had a lot of in-car shots, and they kept saying, this is exactly what the car is going to look like, the real McCoy, when you see it. And as they're going around the corner, you'd see the shadows on the driver's hands and coming across the cockpit. I thought, how in the world do you do that? It made it look absolutely real. And I've talked to people who are not huge racing fans, that nothing else to do, they watch it. I thought it was a real race.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I mean, the available technology is just mind-boggling to make it look as realistic as it does. It's very, very impressive.
Extremely. And I think, it's kind of fun to watch. And speaking of not being up to speed particularly, until about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, I'd never heard of Zoom. I thought that's the guy did the commercial in the car to go zoom, zoom. I had no clue what this is. Fortunately, my IT guru, Ted Howlett, who's sitting by me, pointing fingers at me, said, how'd you like to do it in Zoom? I said, what the hell is that? Well, I didn't know, but we found out that he did. Here we are doing it. What's available today is amazing. You think that our lifetime, yours and mine, I'm older than you, what we've seen, I can't conceive what could come along. We've gone from prop planes to jets to supersonic. We've gone from dial-up telephones to, handheld. The stuff we've seen in our lifetime is astounding. And it's only going on. But we've seen it start. I mean, when I was a kid, we had the first television in town, believe it or not, was the big town. And all the things we've seen, I can't imagine. You've got television. Now, they proved it, obviously, but it's still, we were around when television came. What could come in the future scares me.
It's going to be fun to see, I think. Obviously, there are no limits to what the imagination can do these days. So I'm not sure what's next either. I think you and I are kind of on the downhill side of the technological advance. I mean, I'm working pretty hard to get my life a little simpler. But certainly the options that are available now are probably only going to be enhanced in the future.
What's your or Honda's opinion of the taking over the stewardship of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway IndyCar and IMS production by Roger Penske and now Penske Entertainment? Were you guys happy to see that? Were you thinking, well, now he owns a race team, how does this work? What's your opinion on what he's done and is doing?
I think if I'm sitting here as a fan without a vested interest, I could not imagine a better scenario for IndyCar and for the series. I think we had Roger. I'm not going to say I know Roger well, but I think I know him reasonably well. We obviously have a partnership with him on the sports car side. So he is the team that we run in the prototype category of the IMSA series. It's Acura Team Penske. So I've gotten to know him a little better over that. I think he's a completely reputable guy. I'm not here to suggest that he's not. I think that some of our people had, potential conflict of interest concerns that you just sort of alluded to in your question, because there's no question that Roger and his Chevrolet-powered team are Honda's primary competitors in the IndyCar series. But he's also a very sharp guy, obviously. One of the sharpest businessmen in the country, if not in the world. And so this all had to occur to him before he ever took the step to acquire these properties. And I'm sure that once we all get together on the racetrack again, he's going to have a way to have addressed that to our satisfaction. I'm not really concerned about that.
I thought it was interesting when he had a press conference to announce that he had purchased it and signed, and it would close in January, whenever it was. And he said, I am going to step back. I won't be on the scoring stand anymore. I'll be back running the series. But he said, I know where number one pit is at Indianapolis, and I also have found my way to the victory circle. So that won't change. I know where those two things are. But as far as running the series as a team, he said, Tim Cindric's been there. He knows how to do it. He doesn't need me. I'm sure he'll consult. But so I think, and he is working now. I mean, they haven't slowed down just because this shut down. They're putting up 27 scoring, what do we call them? Scoreboards underneath the paddock, so the people in the lower level of the paddock can see what's going on. Because if you're in the middle and going up, all you see is pit lane. You don't know what's going on. So he's doing a lot of work. And he has said the other day that, is he sorry he's done what he's done? He said, no, there'll be an opportunity. He said, I never look at anything as being bad. There's an opportunity. Now, what that would be coming out, who knows? But he doesn't quit. He never stops.
John, okay, there you go. I thought I'd lost you.
No, I'm too slow to move too quick, so you won't lose me that fast. But I think.
Well, a couple thoughts about that. I mean, first off, Roger got where he is today by looking at circumstances like this as opportunities. So I think that's a perfect way to look at these situations. No question that he knows his way to pit number one in Victory Circle at Indianapolis. We just hope that he has to wait a couple of years before he goes and visits again.
I got to say that I think your lineup of drivers is probably as good as there is anywhere in the world. You've got some of the best in the business that are driving Honda and have proven that Honda can win and has the capability. Now they've become very tough. And I hear the Honda teams when I talk to them, the Chevrolet teams, when I talk to them, say, Honda's going to be tough. We got a problem at this track or that track. They're tough to beat. And that's what you want to hear, of course. And then at the end of the day, when they're standing up on the top step on the podium, that's what you're looking for.
Absolutely. And the intriguing thing about our driver lineup for me, Don, is that we've got a really, really good mix of veteran talent. 5-time champion Scott Dixon, Ryan Hunter-Reay is a champion, Alexander Rossi should be a champion, Graham Rahal, such Takuma Sato, some guys who've been around for a while, but we've got some really talented and exciting young drivers. The next generation of IndyCar success, I think, is hopefully largely in our camp, in people like Santino Ferrucci and Felix Rosenquist. And now I'm anxious to see what Marcus Ericsson's going to do with the Ganassi team. And this Alex Palou looks like a real find as well. He had a great test in Austin before we actually had a chance to compete for the season opener in St. Petersburg, but there's a lot of good young talent coming up through our ranks as well, and that blend of veteran experience and talented young newcomers is one of the things that really makes this attractive for me.
And you've got to say that the Road to Indy program has certainly been successful. It's done what it's designed to do, and I forget how many starters in last year's 500 come through the Road of Indy program, and it was 20 or 25 or something had been involved at one time or another in the Road to Indy program. So that, to me, shows that that's a good program. And as everybody is aware that follows the sport, they're coming from all over the world to get into that because it's the only one of its kind anywhere.
Right. We have, as Honda, we have the F4 and the Formula Regional Americas series now that are kind of entry-level open wheel series. And those guys should hopefully progress through the ranks to the point where, our goal is to take the best of them and put them all in Indy cars someday. So we'll see how all that works out.
It seems to be going along well. There's one or two drivers that are probably, I think TK has said this is going to be his last full-time year. So that will open a seat up for some young guy coming along. I think it's good. I think it's going to be I think it'll be a very exciting year once it gets underway, hopefully. And
don't disagree with that.
I think it'll be a fun year. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your very bit. By the way, I heard this, and I don't know if it's true, so I'm going to ask you. I understand that you're a stay-at-home guitarist. I heard something about that.
I have taken advantage of this opportunity when I'm home for an extended period of time at a time of year when I would never be home for an extended period of time. Hell, I'd probably be in Indianapolis right now if I weren't out here getting ready for the month of May. So with as many consecutive days at home as we have had, I've tried to find time to reconnect with my guitar. I told you I'm not any good. I'll never be any good. I'm not even really trying to be any good. I'm just trying to improve. But I do find that carving out at least 1 hour every day to pick up the guitar and just sort of connect with that has been very, very therapeutic for me while we're all going through this difficult time. So yeah, that's kind of my answer to that.
Well, you mean to tell me during the season you don't get home for a weekend or actually not a week? Well, you might a weekend every so often when they shut down, take a break. You don't sit down and start strumming just to take off pressure, get your mind somewhere else rather than somebody complaining about something?
It's harder to do during the season just because, and I don't know if this is for me, I mean, everything I know about playing the guitar, I taught myself. I've never had a lesson in my life, which is why I'm not so good. But in order for me to, it requires a commitment of more than a day at a time. That's why I have been grateful for this particular extended period at home, because I can set myself a routine and play for an hour every day over a period of 5 or 6 weeks rather than just picking up a guitar for an hour on a Saturday. That's how you get better. It's just like anything else, you got to keep at it. And so the opportunity to keep at it on a regular basis during this quarantine period has been a real blessing to me. Well, I am very pleased. When I called you and you said yes, you'd make time at Thursday at 4 o'clock. It's at 4. No, that's 1 o'clock your time. Okay. Actually, I think the first thing I said was Wednesday at 1 o'clock, and then I remembered that I had a commitment. So, but I'm glad to see you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you, Don. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm looking forward to seeing you in May and maybe in Gateway. Although I understand, I just read something where the hospitalities may be eliminated this year. I hadn't heard that. Honda has restricted each entry to 20 people. And according to the way I read it, just came out the other day, yesterday, I think, it said included in the 20 is not only the engineers and the over-the-wall crew, it has to do with bus drivers, hospitality, as I read it, so it'll cut things back. This is at the Speedway? This is everywhere. Really? That's what it said. If you didn't see that, if you didn't see it, I'll send it to you. I'll email it. That would be very helpful. I'll go back and look, but this is news to me. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I hope, because I enjoy sitting down, and when I get a chance, I got some questions. You have time. You've always sat down and said, let's go. And I've asked you a question. You've never beaten around the bush. You answered what I asked. So I appreciate that. I appreciate your time, and thanks for coming on today. And I hope you stay healthy and enjoy your guitar, and we'll see you whenever it is we see you. June. All right, Don. Thanks so much. Keep safe. And you as well. Thanks for being here. Of course. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. My guest has been T.E. McHale of the Honda and Honda Performance Development. Always a good guy. Always enjoy talking to him. We have some more people lined up to come on. So you'll be seeing AutoSportRadio.com coming forward in the next few days again. In fact, we have one will be coming up, and off we go. So until then, we say thanks for watching. See you next time. Don K. saying goodbye.